Hello, my name is Andrew Carroll, and I am a staff member at the archaeological excavations of Poggio Civitate Merlot in Tuscany, Italy. And I am here today to talk about the master grid at our site, these little imaginary lines that seem to rule our lives. Now, the master grid is an important concept to understand because it allows us as archaeologists to have a relative system of measurement across the entire site. So that when we record our X, Y, and our Z coordinates, we have a standard way of recording them. Now, when the site first started excavation in 1966, these early trenches were using local grids. The reason for this is they thought the excavations would be short-term. At the time, only a single phase was known of occupation. That was the archaic phase. They didn't realize that they would be dealing with multiple phases vertically through the trenches, and at the time in the 1960s, local grids was an accepted practice. Now, the local grids still allow for us to give a relative form of measurement, but it's only for that one trench. So here we have an example of one of these early trenches. This is Tesoro 19 from the Jennifer Neal's 1 trench book, and you can see going up and down the left side of the screen are letters starting at the top, I, H, G, F, and E, and then across we have numbers 47 through 52. So if Jennifer Neal's wanted to describe where the rocks were in her trench, she would have mentioned that there's a spread of rocks going through G51 through 50 and G52. Now, this is great for giving you a local idea of where it is, but if these rocks continued into another trench, then you would be on a different type of trench grid system, which creates confusion when trying to interpret the data. So this was realized, and finally in 1991, a master grid for the entire site was established. This is basically taking the local grid idea and just expanding it across the entire hill. Then in 1992, Dr. Tuck and his brother, working on coal-burning computers, was able to work out an algorithm to plot all of the earlier trenches that were not on the master grid onto the master grid to allow for easier interpretation of the features and artifacts that were found therein. This is why the earlier trenches have coordinates that are not whole numbers, while the trenches after 1991 typically have whole number coordinates. Now, the master grid is not connected to any type of latitude or longitudinal numbers. It just doesn't work that way. It is roughly running north-south and east-west, and there are several points throughout the entire hill that allow for us to reestablish these grids every year after year, but we're not dealing with lat-long or GPS coordinates here. It is still very localized in that sense of the word. In this photo, Kate and myself are holding up the map just in front of one of these points, PC sticks, which we use to reestablish physical lines on the master grid every year. So you can think of the master grid as a giant math grid on the hill. Who would have thought that after high school you would still be using math? Well, you are here. The 0Y and the 0X point is known as PC1, and that is the metal pole positioned near the archaic well. And so that means numbers, all of our positive numbers are north and east, and all of our negative numbers are south and west. And this allows for you, when you're combing through the site's database, to generally have an idea of where an artifact was found based on the positive and negative numbers you have. So what does this look like on the actual site plan? Well, here we have the 2011 site plan, and right there is roughly where PC1 is. And so if we overlay a grid, this is what the entire hill looks like, and this is what the master grid allows for us. It allows for meter lines to be established for trenches, and these can then be divided into centimeters and then millimeters, depending on what is needed for what degree of precision is needed with the master grid. Typically, when we're dealing with the trenches, we're dealing with whole meters and sometimes half meters. And so you can see how these trenches over here in Civitate A and in Civitate B, which were all established after 1991, are all running in the same direction, roughly in similar sizes. And then you go over to the Archaic Building where some of the earlier trenches are, and you can see how they're kind of slanted based off the master grid. Here's a nice clear picture where the mouse is. And so the algorithm allows us to compare them to the more recent trenches, and the entire master grid allows these relative measurements to be compared throughout the whole site. That's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful for you.